Welcome to all of you that are attending this meeting of the Board of Directors of the Pecan Plantation Owners Association. This meeting is called to order. So we are pleased that you continue to give up your time to attend and support our community. I wish to remind you that according to our bylaws, recording these proceedings by any electronic device is prohibited. And when such recording is detected or observed, we are obligated to adjourn the meeting until such recording is ended. Therefore, I respectfully request that you close all cell phones or other devices now. And I would remind you that the entire proceedings are recorded by staff and are soon available on our website. I would like to share briefly some general thoughts about our community needs that we are facing now or will be facing soon. As Pecan grows and as its amenities and infrastructure age, we must repair, replace, or construct them soon. These needs include a drainage project on Westover needed to prevent flooding damage to affected homes, and repair and widening of the front entrance. These two projects will be considered by the board today. Other projects that will be considered soon are the renovation or relocation of the 19th Hole and Pro Shop, a master plan changes in the clubhouse, renovation or relocation of Plainview Park, renovation of the marina facilities, complete reconstruction of the irrigation system of the golf course, reconsideration of the wellness center, reconsideration of the expansion of golf facilities, including a second and or a third golf course, and the added burden of the adoption of the infrastructure in each of the new sections developed by the Anthonys as they come online. And we are expecting a request from the EMS for additional funding to support their program as well. There will be other projects that emerge with time, and as Pecan grows, we will have to first prioritize them and then find the funding to complete them. We will rely on the Long-Range Planning Committee to offer a plan for our consideration, and we, as the Board of Directors, will make the decisions on your behalf on how to fund them and how to include the will of the membership for funding each project. It is my intent to make us all aware that each of these projects will be costly, and if we are to keep up the high quality of lifestyle in Pecan that we enjoy, we must be prepared to increase our financial commitment to funding those projects chosen to be completed. We are aware that funding decisions are carefully considered by our membership, and so we must present them to you in as complete and thoughtful a manner as we can. It is our obligation, and you, our members, deserve no less. Thank you. And if anyone wants to have these comments, Mary has about 10 or 11 copies. She'll make them available to you. We have one card for our open session, and this is, it looks like Percy Hayes. Percy Hayes. And if you would, where are you? Would you please come up and speak at the microphone? Thank you.
My question that I had was in regard to the purchase process for the umbrellas at the two pools that we have.
Speak in the mic. I can't hear you back there, Percy.
Get real close to a mic, okay? There you go.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, much better.
Well, being as I'm modest and everything, I don't catch on that very often. Thank you. Sorry about that. But the proposals that I have heard on regarding the new umbrellas that Keith wants for both pools, as I understand, and the shelf life, according to Keith, is like 2 to 3 years for this umbrella. umbrellas. We happen to have a sunbrella that we've had for 11 years, and it's terrific. I looked at the pool and the umbrellas yesterday, and it looks like we've got brand new umbrellas there. They look brand new. If they're not, they're in perfect condition. And they say that, well, they're blowing away in the wind. They could do like the homeowners do, put an anchor in the bottom of it to keep them from blowing out of the little cement blocks that they're sitting in. And another thing, the cost of them is prohibitive in the sense that he could probably, if you take care of them, they'll last twice as long. And for the amount of money that is being proposed to buy these, I don't think a lot of thought was put into it about how to take care of what we have before we try to run out and buy brand new. But what are we going to do with the ones that's sitting out there that's really good that we're going to replace? Where do they go? I'm sure excuse me, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you were finished, I was going to ask Keith to come up and answer your question.
Oh, good. That'll help.
Yeah, thanks, Percy. You brought up a lot of stuff that I didn't think about. But the umbrellas, yes, we have some pretty good ones. They are not brand new. They will last 3 years, sometimes longer, sometimes less. We had, at one time, I had up to, I think, 14 umbrellas between both pools. Several of them are broken. Almost all of them are missing the tops. They are bent. What we did was we culled, before this a pool opening, I culled all the good pieces we could. You didn't see the 6 or 7 that went in the trash before opening day. And your umbrella, how old is it?
10 years old.
Okay, I invite you to allow the membership to come over and use your umbrella every single day. And you know what? I don't think it'll last 2 to 3 years. We do try to keep them anchored on. And again, the membership unscrews them, moves them, loses the nuts, then they're broken or they drop them. So we're replacing what we can. The plan is, I never said they were all going to go out right now. The plan is, it goes in our stock. This is something we always use, and I'm sure this season I might go through 4 or 5 where we break into the old cash. I have probably about two or three still brand new in the box, but this is an ongoing supply issue that is used when they can't be used. So when you ask, what are they going to do? We're going to still use them as long as they're good. I can't tell you how long that may be. We could have a windstorm next week and we could lose 8 of them. But that's the reason of that we're requesting. And it was in the budgeted plan, so we're going forward with it.
Well, thank you, Keith. Keith, it would be helpful, I think, to the board if you could have provided that explanation when you made the request initially. Okay? Okay. So there are no more comments, requests for presentations, and so we'll move to the minutes. You've had an opportunity to read the minutes. Percy?
I had a second question that I wanted to ask, but I thought we were limited to one per car.
No, Percy, you can take another one, absolutely.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. This is regarding our pavilion in the RV park. I was just down there again today looking it over and trying to figure out the expenses and everything that's going in there, which the proposal, it looks good. You know, new table, big, heavy, 300-pound tables and board seats, bench seats for it, and comes out like $3,600, something like that, $4,000 if I remember. The question that I have is that is used periodically, seasonal, from time to time. Why can't we take that $3,000 and something and put it on an audience that uses it 12 months a year, like our kids in the parks, the slides, the swings, the volleyball nets, all of that stuff is going to crap, and y'all have all seen the results of that. Why don't we take care of the kids first, and then we'll worry about the visitors later?
Well, I would answer that. I know that that pavilion is used throughout the year by a number of our organizations, adult organizations. It's heavily used, so it's not periodically used. Is there anyone on the board have anything else to say in response? Okay, thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
So we've heard you've had an opportunity to review the minutes. May I have a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Beverly has second the motion. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Now we'll move to the financials, and this is the first opportunity we'll have to see our new presentation format. So wish us luck. I think we're in good shape. Mr. Kite is not here, so we've asked Mr. Cote to help us out here. Thanks.
Before starting this presentation, I need a mic.
Yes.
Yeah, before I start this presentation, I'd like to recognize, first of all, Doug Green and Dick Kite, and especially Tom Bazzone of the Finance Committee. They're all pitched in and putting this new financial report together. It changes nothing in our accounting system. It just summarizes the report that we were getting in the past that was a little difficult to discern for those of us that don't work with it every day. So you'll see that we sort of simplified this a little bit. I'd also like to recognize a couple of other people that have helped me, a couple of my colleagues when I was in the Saudi Arabian oil companies, CPAs who looked at this from a rationale standpoint, and a couple of other members here in the community that helped us put this thing together. So without anything more, let me see if we can get this thing going here. The financials are going to be given in two parts. One by the treasurer, who's going to talk about the cash, the revenues that we take in a month, and then the second part will be the operations, which will be given by the general manager, Michael Bartholomew, who will discuss, how the operations are working against budgets and things like that. So to start off with here, we will first tell you that in April, our total revenues were $595,000. Our total expenses were $529,000, and we had a net surplus of $66,000. So in that total revenues, as you know, the operations assessment that you get every month, that you pay every month, the $90.75 is part of that total revenue. So if you multiply that times 3,020 members that we have now, we're looking at half of the revenues, about half comes from our operations, and the other half comes from the assessments. And then we will show you year to date. So now we're through 6 months. Remember that our business year starts in the 1st of November, so we're into the 6th month of the year. So we're at $3.2 million in total revenues, $3 million in expenses, and our net surplus to date for the year is $161,350. So this report tells you right at the beginning what the numbers were for the month and where we're at for the year. And then we will compare our actual budgets to the previous year in total. We don't break it down by departments here. Michael will break that down in his portion. So as you can see, for the month of April, that's the top half there. The revenues were $595 that we said in the but we had cost of sales of $86,000, gross profit of $508, cost of labor, taxes, $292,000, other expenses, $150. So our total cost of operations for April were $529,000, and that's that surplus. And the next line gives you the budget, what was budgeted for, so you can see that we're pretty close to the budget, the variances in the various total company, but at the end of the day, at the bottom line is we had a $6,000 off of the budget. In the previous year, The next line gives you what we did the previous year and the difference. So, and then in the second portion of this, it gives you year-to-date, the same information for the first 6 months. So total revenues, we have a 2,611 a surplus on that. Our cost of sales went up. And I think from a business standpoint, whenever you increase your sales, you know your cost of sales are going to go up. And our gross profit was down by $5,445,000. Our cost of labor is off by $33,000. That's an area that we have to look at. We haven't really studied that as much as we should, but that's an area that we should be looking at. Our other expenses were up $12,000, and total cost of operations was up by $50,000. So we had a net deficit in our operations by $51,291 for the year. Today, the first 6 months.
Is that compared to last year? That's compared to last year, Bob.
I'm sorry, compared to last, yeah, I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah, thank you.
So we have a,
The variance is 99 plus for the first 6 months. If we compare it to last year, we're down 51,000. But you can bear in mind that last year, that's a number here that we should be concerned about because last year, we ended up with a surplus of, if you recall, of about $70,000 total. And through the first 6 months of the year, we're already at negative 51,000. So although we had $161,000 in net surplus for the first 6 months, last year at the same time we had 212. So that's something we have to look at as we go through the year. But I've noticed, looking at it from month to month, that we're improving a little bit as we go. So this is, the next portion that Dick will tell us about is the cash and the funds that we have in the banks. The first part there is our consolidated operating fund. That's the general fund that we operate from. As you can see, we have a $978,000 cash balance in the bank right now in our operating fund. So if you look at our total expenditures in a month is usually around $500,000. Is that right, Janice? About $500,000. We have $978,000 in surplus, which is twice what our expenses are, and that's good. That's healthy. Now, our capital reserves, we have $1,900 balance in that capital reserve right now, and we have $989,000 in the road and drainage fund as we speak. So if we look at our cash position, we're in pretty sound financial condition. We have $3.8 million, almost $3.9 million in the bank, either in cash or in funds. All right, general operating fund is 978, 1.9 capital reserves, and another million in road and drainage fund. And while I'm on here on the cash balance here, I'd like to make a comment. Well, maybe I should wait till we ask the questions. Right now? Yeah, you know, this $3.8 million in cash, the cash balance, it's not all cash. Some of that is invested. But as a director, I don't know what that is. So I think we need to ask, I think, the Finance Committee, and I think Bob Zinski talked to me about this, and they would like to review our cash to see how it's being invested. Should we invest more? Is it reasonable? And make recommendations to the board if we need to change that or not change that. I don't know because I haven't seen that information. And being a board member, I think we all need to see that. Ms. Reed, Mr. President? All right, our balance sheet for last year, if you look here, we had total assets after depreciation of $19.7 million, with total liabilities of $1.3 million. So the members' equity, the equity that we have in this place, the members is $18.4 million. And that's up from $15.9 from last year, the previous year. Now you're probably saying, well, how do we get from 15 to 18? Well, did a lot of capital expenditures. See, a lot of people look at some of our expenditures and they say, gee, we're just spending it and we're not paying attention. But a lot of the expenditures that we're spending on are capital assets, all right? And they go on the books as an asset. So it's not as if we're wasting it and throwing it away in operations. But we're going to have the Finance Committee look at our cash and see if we can improve our investments and maybe more revenues. So having said that, your member assessments here, this is what you do. We now have 3,020 employees, members. And this is what you pay. The first column is what each member pays per month, $141.93. It's divided into $90.75 for general fund. Capital is $8. Roads and drainage is $19. Trash pickup is $14.18. And the EMS contribution is $10 for a total of $141.93. Every month, we put $274,000 in the general fund and $3.2 million a year at the rate of 3,020 members. Now, another thing, Mr. President, that I've noticed as I looked at this is the trash pickup. You saw where we show the consolidated operating fund here, and we show the capital reserve fund, and we show the road and drainage fund. I think we should have a report to the board that highlights our trash pickup fund, because it's not a dollar for dollar. It's not like the EMS where it's a dollar for dollar transfer to EMS. There may be some surplus there and maybe some negatives, but I think we ought to have at least, that's not a difficult thing to put together. So having said that, that's going to be the treasurer's report. Does anybody have any questions? All right, now the second portion will be given by Michael Bartholomew, the general manager. But what I would like to do is just go through it real quick without highlighting any of the specifics of the revenues, expenses, and budgets, but just tell you what the rationale for doing what we're doing here. First of all, he's going to give the department performances to the budget by department. Before in the previous reporting, we were showing it by category. You know, revenues and then each department, cost of sales, each department, labor, each department. This way here, we're doing it horizontally. We're showing it by departments. So we show the revenues, the cost of sales, labor, expenses, and then we'll show the income loss and the budget and the variance to the budget for the month. This is for the month of April. So I think that's easier to sort of understand. And then we'll show it the year-to-date, the same deal. Michael will explain the details of this. And then, because the payroll is our biggest expense, I think it's somewhere 52-53% of total revenues. It's pretty high. So we have a line here just to show the payroll for April was $292,000 to total revenues of $595. We budgeted for $602, so we're $7,000 I'm sorry, the revenues are $7,000. The cost of labor is up by $8,000. Previous year, we were at $289, so we have a $2,249 compared to last year. And for the year-to-date, we're at $33,000 above last year, but we're $23,000 to the good to the budget for this year. Anyway, we'll let Michael explain that. Then this is the big change that tells us what the real cost is to operate pecan plantation. In our previous reports, we did not report some indirect overheads and some shared expenditures to the departments that were using it. For instance, the utilities for this building is significant. I think it's about $140,000 a year. Is that about right? $10,000, $12,000 a month. Well, in order to know what the pro shop does or what the food and beverage does, you need to know how much electricity they use because they were the user of that of that utility. So what we've done here is we're going to show the cost of the activities, and in that indirect overheads, you see indirect overheads, that is what we allocated to each department. And the allocation was made by an average of the total expenses, a percentage of the total expenses, and we just took all of the indirect overheads and applied it and allocated it to the departments. Now, next year, I hope that we can do a better job at budgeting so that the shared expenditures can be dealt with before we get to the indirect overheads. If anybody knows, if indirect overheads are expenses, for instance, the office expenses, well, the general manager and the controller and all the people that work up there, he's not the general manager of the business office, he's the general manager of the whole company. So his expense has to be allocated to each department so that we know what the true cost is of doing business in those departments. Anyway, that's the rationale. So,
and is that represented by member services, or do we have, I don't see that up there.
member services is down here. See this next to the last one?
Is that the administrative cost?
No. Member services is the cost, for instance, the expenses of bringing coffee and stuff down here.
But you just mentioned that there's a cost of administration, but I don't see it up there.
No, it's not. It's going to be...
Yeah, it was, like last year, we had administrative costs of over $700,000. Now, it didn't cost Michael $700,000 to run his office. But he was absorbing things like deer management into that administrative overhead. So what we've done is we've taken that administrative overhead, in other words, Janice processing the billing for the for food and beverage. And we divvied that up, indirect costs, and so the $700,000 that Michael spent last year now is divvied up among the activities that were using the service that him and his staff were providing.
That's part of the indirect overheads.
I understand that. What I don't see, though, is a category of the costs that our manager's office has, so you've distributed all that.
It's in the finance report that Janice puts out that we've been getting right along. You'll find that in there.
Okay.
This just summarizes that. The backup for this report is Janice's financial consolidated statement. All right? Anyway, Michael we'll talk about the rest on this thing. So this is the cost of activities for the year, for the year to date, for 6 months. And then what we're going to show you is the projected cost of the activities, services, and amenities for the year. So we took the first 6 months, we projected out, just multiply it times 6 months, and then you'll find out that golf is averaging $18.63 per member, or $223.54 a year, is what everybody pays for golf. And the same thing goes for roads and grounds, security, sports and recreation, food and beverage. But I'd like to note here, Vince brought something up in the last meeting, is that our total maintenance for our roads and grounds and facilities, if you put them together, roads and grounds net cost for the year is $553,000, and for the facility maintenance is $260,000. So if you put both of those together, you're talking about what, $800 and something thousand, which makes maintenance of this place for what our roads and grounds manager is the same person who manages our facilities maintenance, I think. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's where the biggest expense is.
If we totaled up the third column, it would be $141, right?
No, not really, not necessarily. It might be, but, it may be close. Yeah.
It'd be 90-75.
If we
and the
total it all up, is that what it comes out to?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. You're right.
Okay.
But a slight amount of difference. I mean, the difference would be like last year, we had a surplus of 74,000.
Maybe it could
So
be-
that 74,000 is
Maybe
what
up a little
causes
bit,
a slight difference.
That's what it represents, actually.
I think, just a comment, that if you were to ask most members who live here, what's the biggest expense we have, most members would say it's golf. And when you look at this, you see that golf is not the most expensive. It's a single line most expensive, but if you compare maintenance and some of these other things, they are a lot more expensive. We're paying a lot more for that than the members are paying for golf. Not to say that they don't pay a lot for golf, but $18 a month is not going to break the bank for most people.
Anyway, the biggest expense here is managed by Daniel, so, be nice to Daniel. All right, I'll tell you what, I'll turn this over, this is all I have, I'll turn this over to, we need, how do we back this up somehow? How do we get back to the, John?
I'll go back. Let me see if I can get it, yeah.
So while Michael's getting ready, I want to again repeat to thank you, Bob, for doing all this work and getting this started. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so let's talk with a little bit more detail about the financials for 6 months through our fiscal year, through April. As Mr. Coste said, you can see our revenues on the left-hand side. So if you simply take your revenues, minus your labor, minus your expenses, you get your income, compare that to the budget, and you get your variance. So let's look at the departments. First of all, security. We have a $4,400 missed deployment in security, mainly due to overtime in our security staff. We're a little bit understaffed. Golf had a good month, so our golf finished 76-28 ahead of the plan. If you see on the right-hand side, income loss, they lost $22,000 on a plan of 30. Roads and grounds, you can see the effect of new housing starts. We have year-to-date 100 transfer fees, but our road maintenance fees are way down compared to our budget. So we're not getting as many new homes, but transfer fees, as you may know, homes are really turning into complantation. So the 100 so far this year. And so we have a $1,300 missed plan in that department because of that. Sports and rec doesn't, of course, bring in much revenue, $3,600. You can see the labor and the expenses there. And we have a small missed plan of $1,600. We finally have a person dedicated to the 35 acres at the PAC, so there's where the increase expense comes from there. Facilities maintenance, of course, does not have any labor or any revenue associated with it, so we spent $5,900 on labor, $12,000 on expenses, missed plan by $918. Food and beverage, great sales in food and beverage, $142,000 for the month. The net was $14,000 on a very aggressive plan of $20,000 for a negative variance of $5,900. Communication revenues continue to lag behind due to ad revenues. Our ad revenues are less than budgeted pretty consistently throughout the year. So income for this month of April, $5,400 on a plan of $4,200. So we missed plan by $1,100 in the communications department. The inn was very busy. We had 40% occupancy. That's about 10-12% higher than usual. So the inn had made $77 this month. So we take that to the bank. Marina also had a very good month, $27,000 in sales. Cooking revenue is very strong in the marina. We did $10,000 in cooking revenue. That's the highest month that we've ever had for cooking revenue down at the marina. So you can see on the right-hand side that that's a positive $2,500 on a plan to lose $115 for a positive variance of $2,600. And a wet slip rentals are also going very well. Small missed plan in member services, and our stables on the right there, small variance, positive variance of $1,100. So for the month, $129,000 on a plan of $125,000, missed a plan of $4,588. Year-to-date, you can see we'll go down these numbers, much the same as we did before. Security revenue, $68,000 for the year. You can see the labor and expenses there. Small missed a plan of $8,600. Again, that was due to overtime. We've been short-staffed in our security department, mainly at the gates. Golf department, favorable weather has been very nice to the golf department, both in pro shop sales, green fees and cart fees. Weather's really helped us. $275,000 in sales. You can see the expenses there compared to our budget. $186,000 loss compared to 202, so that's a positive $16,000 in golf year-to-date. Roads and grounds, frankly, $67,000 in revenue. We did on the right-hand side there have a $2,000 positive variance, and that is simply because we cannot find enough staff. Having very, very difficult time finding staff. Daniel was horribly short-staffed. We put ads in the paper and have not had much luck, and so we're researching other methods to get staff to come and to stay with us. Sports and recreation revenue year-to-date, $19,000. You can see there $16,000 ahead of their financial plan. If you look on the right, loss of $134,000 on a plan of $150,000. Facilities maintenance, positive variance of $8,400. So we spent $87,000 on a plan of $96,000. Food and beverage, so far this year, $704,000 in revenue, so we're on track to do $1.4 million in revenue. If you look to the right-hand side, we've lost $10,000 year-to-date in food and beverage on a plan to lose $15,000. We have a $5,000 positive variance there. Communications, as I said before, ad revenue is down. Total revenue for the year, $116,000. And we have an $8,697,000 missed to plan because of the lack of revenue, but we're working hard to increase that. The end, $61,000 in revenue. You can see the labor and expenses there, so we have a slight positive variance of $1,997 year-to-date. Marina, although they had a good April, they're still behind plan. If you look on the right-hand side, $3,259. Member services, year-to-date, we've spent $21,000 on a plan of $16,900. That's a positive $4,975. In the stables, we brought in $25,000 in revenue. This time we only had 17 horses, but still controlled our expenses, and we have a slight positive to our budget of $1,400. So total income, $941,000 on a budget of $967, positive variance of $26,066 year-to-date. And as Mr. Cote said, he already went over this slide there. Talked about our payroll, both through April and year-to-date, so we already talked about that one. So we'll slide by that one and go into the indirect overhead costs. And basically, as Mr. Cote said, the more expenses and labor the departments have, the higher the allocation. So you can see security allocated $13,000, and the net cost is $51,000. And you can see this is April. The security department cost each member $17.24 out of the $90.75 that you paid operations. Golf, again, in April had a really good month, so golf allocation was $24,000. As you can, that means that our golf operation spends more money than the security operation, at least it did for April. And then the net cost is $46,000, and the net is $1,551. Roads and grounds revenue, we already went over that. You can see the allocation there. And again, all these allocations are based on both the expenses and the labor divided together to get the overhead indirect cost. So the roads and grounds department is third at $43,000 of net cost. Sports and recreation is next. Revenue from sports and recreation comes from campground revenue, all the camps and classes that we do, $3,600 there. You can see the expenses $31, the income $27. Allocation is $12,000 for sports and rec. The net's $39, and it's 1320 of your 9075. And then facilities maintenance, you can see the numbers there. The allocation, of course, goes down as the expense in those departments goes down. Allocation for facilities maintenance, $6,700. Net cost, $25,000, which is simply the expenses plus your income and your allocation to get your $25,000. Food and beverage revenue, $142,000 for April, as I said. And the allocation is $19,000 because it's obviously very expensive for food and beverage to run that operation. But the net cost was $5,471, or $1.82 of your assessment went to food and beverage in April. And you can see the rest of the numbers there. Communications, $14,000. Net cost, $495 is the cost to the member. The inn, obviously, as they get lower revenue and lower costs, you see those numbers going down. The allocation also going down. Net costs for the inn, $8,700, $2.90 for the month. Marina, due to the nice month that the marina had, only 54 cents. And member services, $1.35. So then the total cost, if you add the expenses and the indirect overhead, and the net cost, you add all those up, subtract that from the member assessments, the $8 that everybody pays every month, add the fees to that, and the net is, as Mr. Cote mentioned earlier, for the month, $66,106. And here's the numbers year to date. On the left-hand side, these are revenues through 6 months of the year, expenses related to those, the net income, positive or minus, and then the allocation based on, again, how much each department spends, net cost, and then what it costs each member through 6 months. So these are in a little bit reverse order. Golf should be one up higher than security, but again, you can see all the allocation costs there. So golf year to date, revenues $275,000, expenses of $461,000. Income of $186,000 negative, add that to the indirect overhead, and you get the net cost of $337. And so as we go down the line, same thing, we take our revenues minus our expenses, you get the net, add your indirect overhead cost to it, and then you get the net cost for each department. So as in descending order, so you can see security, golf, down to roads and grounds, sports and rec. Facilities maintenance, of course, is not an income revenue generating department. $130,000 net cost once you add the allocation year to date. Communications, net indirect cost of $102,000. So far this year, $3,404. That is obviously 6 months of revenue coming in. The inn, $61,000 year to date in revenue. Take away your expenses, your income, your net is $43,000. Add your indirect overhead, and the inn has cost us so far this year $76,000.
Can I ask a question, Michael? The golf has indirect costs that's higher than... Golf has an indirect cost that's higher. It's $150,000 plus, which is higher than food and beverage, which is $124,000. How is that indirect cost higher for golf? We're talking about just the facility that the golf is...
You're talking about the expenses in the labor. So the expenses in the labor in the golf department were higher than the expenses in the labor in the food and beverage department. Therefore, the allocation to the golf department is larger than the allocation to the food and beverage.
The indirect.
That's what I'm talking about, the indirect overhead. Because of the cost, the expenses, the labor, and the expenses in the golf department were higher than the labor and the expenses in the food and beverage department. They get a higher allocation. The allocation is higher. In other words, it costs us more. We allocate more to the golf department because their expenses are higher than the food and beverage department. And you can see like the marina, for instance, is only $26,000 in indirect overhead because their expenses are much lower than the other departments.
Well, maybe I just need some clarification, Bob. Indirect overhead costs, that is the electricity, the utilities,
All the expenses in the office.
right.
Legal fees, all the expenses.
So that is higher for GOP than it is for food and beverage.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to allocate, but we chose, because the only consistent measure we had was expenses. Some companies allocate by profit, some allocate by total sales. But in our case, all our departments are not equal except in expenses. So that's what we allocate. So you take all the expenses and you take a percentage, and that's what you allocate.
Right, and I'd like to add, you know, it's not just utilities, but it includes the billing effort, the purchasing effort, payroll effort that Michael and his staff provide. So all that wraps together to come up with indirect overhead costs.
So if you look at the bottom line, our total revenues through 6 months of the year are $1.45 million. Our expenses, 2.392. Our income and loss, negative $941,000. You add the indirect expenses of $702,000, comes out to $1.6 million. If you take that and you subtract it or add it to our member assessments, that's the $8 that everybody pays per month, times 3,020 members, times 6 months. That's how you get to $1.64 million. Add our fee revenue of $164,000, and that's how you get the positive surplus year-to-date of $161,350. Projected at the end of the year, here's our projections, how we think the net cost will be for the year. And those, again, are in descending order. Total cost of the operation, $3.2 million, and you can see all the numbers there, the net cost and for the year, and then the allocation, where we think it'll come out. So if you add up that far right-hand number, that will get real close to $90.75. And so, in effect, that's what each of those amenities cost you on a monthly basis. So it's just another way of looking at it. I think it's a little bit easier to understand. And then our total operating forecast, here's how we think we're going to end the year by the end of our fiscal year, 6 more months. Assessment revenue, right about on plan. We're at 15 net members year to date. We're planning for 25, so we're right on track. So we think we're going to be right on track with our assessment revenue. Operations revenue, a couple of departments, as I mentioned, communication, the comms ad revenue, we're not going to hit budget there. A couple other minor departments, so we'll have a $28,000 miss to plan there. As I mentioned, the new housing starts, road maintenance fees will not hit plan, so we're going to have about a $28,000 miss in operations. Cost of sales, just about right on plan. Payroll, we're expecting to spend $23,000 less in the budget by the time this fiscal year is over. Expect to spend $81,000 less than our budget for other expenses. And our forecast for the year, $82,254 on a budget of $2,443. Positive variance, $79,811. Our capital expenditure report, we've been over this quite a few times, but those are the ones that we've already completed. Been very busy this year, and those are the ones that we're working on. Telephone system and towers. In the next couple weeks, we'll be putting our radio equipment on top of the BOA tower so that we can improve our wireless system to all of our remote locations right now. Anything that's not in the clubhouse is done through a wireless remote system that David designed, and we got permission from the BOA to put the new system up on the BOA tower because we've lost line of sight. As the trees have grown up and the houses have gone in, we cannot shoot. We shoot from the clubhouse. We can no longer see the marina, so we have to go a little bit higher, and lucky enough, the BOA was kind enough to let us put our equipment on their tower. That'll be followed up by a new telephone system. Our telephone system is over 20 years old, so we'll be installing a new state-of-the-art telephone system, waiting on AT&T to install the equipment. That should be coming in the next couple of weeks, we hope. Dump truck, West Circle improvements. You'll soon see the trellis going up on the West Circle. Pro shop and 19th hole designs, $10,000. We talked about that earlier. Spray rig, actually we got in a couple days ago, and Mr. Underwood's already used it on the greens. And the triplex mower, $31,000. And that concludes my report for this month. Mr. President, Mr. Cote.
Any questions, board?
Bob, I just one comment I'd like to make. Those of us old guys up here that, go for change, there's always some pushback, initially to any change anywhere in the world that I've worked. And I want to commend Michael here because he worked with us very closely on this thing. And thank you, Michael, for looking at this thing positively. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I do have a question. Usually we have roads and drainage, and we show what has been spent. Are we not including that anymore in our report?
That was in the treasurer's report that Bob Cote presented for Dick Kite, and one of those line items was roads and drainage.
Have we not had any projects in roads and drainage yet this year?
Individual projects.
Yes, just like we list all the capital projects we have had. I think we should still, There hasn't been any yet? Yeah. Okay. But if we approve the ones tonight, then we will have one for roads and drainage that'll be part of what's included here. So we'll see the work that's been done. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it may take us a few months to get used to this process, and just one last question, Bob and Michael, any surprises in the way that this presentation is made? Any of our departments showing up differently than we had anticipated?
No, it's nothing's changed. I mean, everything is. All we did was summarize what we already knew, so we can understand it a little easier. No surprises. I think it went well. But I think you're right. This will smooth out as we do one or two or three, and they'll be a lot faster.
Okay. All right, and in pursuit of speed here, let's move on. There is no old business, but we do have a significant number of new business items. And so I think I've lost the copy I have where those, okay. So for 6A, if we could have, Joe, I think you're up for that, if you would make that motion.
I propose that we, under 16-10-15B, the main gate gas dock for the marina, that we table this temporarily until we find out some of the missing information. There are two parts. We have one very good bid on just the rebuilding of the floating dock, but does not include the movement at all of the gas pump. And we do not know the cost therein of movement of the gas pump or the refurbishment or replacement of the gas pump at either location. We're hopeful that we will have that info within the next 30 days, so that when we bring this forward, we'll have a complete picture of the proposal.
Do we have a second to table this motion?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Motion second by Mr. Green. We'll have a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to item B, and that would be Doug.
Yes, sir. This is ACE 17-02-01. This is the Westover drainage improvement, and I would like to make a motion that we approve this ACE.
And do we have a second?
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Green, would you like to make a few comments about this?
Yes, sir. This is the area that's between Westover and Wedgefield, and it's the northernmost section of that. And the It's the last step in the process to get the water drained out of what we call the Basin K that has in the past flooded parts of Wedgefield. And the budget was somewhere between 280,000 to 310. It came in at 289,000 plus some odd dollars. The major effort for this is to get the water across Wedgefield. We will be digging up about 300 feet of one lane on Westover to put in a giant storm drain that will carry that water off that area and into the Brazos River.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second for item 6B. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? That motion is passed. Item C, so that would be Doug again.
That's me again. Yeah, this is ACE 17-02-01. This is to repave the front entrance from the bridge all the way out to the front gate, and in the process also to increase the length of the membership lane where we pull over to go through the membership gate.
Do we have a second?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Before we second, the ACE should be 17-02-02. You said 01.
Oh, 02, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Joe, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Doug, you want to make a comment about that?
Right, and I jumped into a comment early there, but the same contractor that's doing the Westover drainage is also doing this road. We've got basically a $100,000 reduction because the same contractor is doing both improvements for us. The initial cost came in pretty high for this effort. We went back and Daniel studied this along with the infrastructure. They actually counted the number of trucks that came in. They've got engineering analysis to determine how thick the road bed needed to be. They're going to put down 10 inches of compressed, basically rock, fuel, and then 4 inches of asphalt. And that effort will give us a road that should last for 20 years. And that's based on the estimated tonnage that drives across, or the number of axles that Daniel counted that use that front entrance.
And the roadway is not going to be altered in any way. We're just rebuilding.
No, except for the membership lane that will be lengthened.
Right. Any other comments from the board?
You know, I have one comment here. For those of us that were here 18 years ago, 19 years ago, 2000, remember how bad that front road was. It was so bad we had to close it down. I happened to be on the board at the time. So we need to get this thing and keep it in A1 shape, and this is going to do that for 20 years. So I support this.
And I know some of you in the audience would like to make comment, but the practice is not to do that. The procedures here are confined to discussion from the board members. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D, and that would be Beverly.
I move that the board approve ACE 17-10-14 for the Shady Pavilion picnic tables in the amount not to exceed $5,000.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. President and the board, as was previously discussed by Mr. Hayes and by Keith, these tables will be quite heavy. There will be 300-pound tables. There will be 6 of them. The bid came in at $4,468, but because that bid may have a little bit of time since that bid came through, that Keith is asking for $5,000 and a not to exceed instead of $4,487. And I would say, I also mentioned there were $7,000 in the budget for this project.
Any other comments from the board? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. And so item E, is that right?
Another popular one. I move the board approve ACE 17-10-15 for pool pavilions in the amount of not to exceed $3,650.
Ross, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Beverly again?
As was also discussed during the open session, this is a continuing an annual event to replace and prepare our pools for our members and guest use throughout the year. And Keith will try to buy as many as he can for this amount. He's getting it from Hay Needle, and they're coming in at $3,652, and it's not to exceed.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
He requested $4,000, I'm sorry. The bid came in at $3,650. And again, this is one of those, I don't know if any of you've used Hay Needle, but they can vary, from day to day in terms of what their actual price is. So it's in the amount of $4,000 is the ACE.
Okay. We've had a comment on this from the members, and we're aware of the use of this. Thank you, Keith, for your information. Any other comments?
I have one question here. I got a couple of phone calls and a couple of emails. I'd like assurance from management that you haven't purchased these umbrellas before the approval of this expenditure.
No, we haven't purchased them, no.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I think Keith said that he had refurbished several umbrellas, and he had some new in boxes, and that he had put them out. So maybe what they were seeing is new ones that are out, but not these are purchased. I think these are to restock his inventory, Bob.
Good, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
I'd like to make a comment. I appreciate what Mr. Hayes did. When things like this, they seem simple. Keith needs some umbrellas for the pool. And when they show up, it's hard for us as a board member to actually validate that. So having feedback and from membership, I think is important. And we try our best to ask the hard questions, and we drilled Keith on this. And oftentimes, we'll get to two other ACEs here shortly, where after the workshop, I tracked down the people and asked them again, because we're spending your money, and it's important that we do it right, and I think we are.
Thank you. And no other comments from the board, then we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item F is ratification of an e-vote, and so I think Vince is going to make a motion for this.
Yeah, Mr. President, I move that the board approve ACE 17-10-16 for replacement of the clubhouse pool pump. The board has previously authorized that purchase on an emergency basis. The pump broke down shortly before the swimming season was to begin, and it was pretty urgent that we get that replaced before the pool opened. And
let's have a second first before you...
All right.
Doug?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, Vince, why don't you describe the process?
We're asking the board to ratify the previous authorization of the purchase of the pool pump.
Okay. And this was done by e-vote. Does anyone want to describe that process for the members that are here? when we have an emergency purchase? No? When we do have an emergency purchase, an emergency expenditure, the practice is for management to arrange a vote through email or an e-vote. And our bylaws require that if the e-vote is approved, it must be ratified then at the open board meeting. And so, well, we do have these kinds of emergency expenditures. If we didn't have this process available to us, then we couldn't authorize the expenditure of those funds. And so that's the procedure that we use.
Well, I might add, too, for the members here, that it's the same ACE that we see here. It's just sent to us prior to the board meeting, so action can be taken for an emergency. So it has to have the same justification.
Okay. All right, so this vote is to ratify the electronic vote that was taken a couple of weeks ago. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number G. And that would be, again, Ms. Franson. You're busy today.
I move the board approve ACE 17-10-17. This is a kitchen ice machine. It's replacement of one of our current ice machines that overheats continually and cannot keep up with our current needs. And the amount of this ACE is $4,064.
Bob, do we have a second? We have a second from Mr. Cote. Beverly, you want to expand that?
Evidently, the one that we have is water-cooled, and this versus, is air-cooled versus this would be water-cooled, to be a lot more efficient. It will produce all the ice that's going to be necessary for the kitchen's use, and I think that's about all I can say about it.
Any other comments from the board? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item H, the utility van, and that would be Doug.
Yeah, this is ACE 17-10-18. It is for replacement of an existing utility van for Daniel and his staff. The current van is, I believe it's about 11 years old. It's only got 70,000 miles. This is one where I tracked Daniel down after the meeting, and it's like, are you kidding me? 70,000 miles and we're replacing it? Well, the real answer is the way we use vehicles at Pecan. You crank it up, you drive for 3 minutes, and you shut it down. You don't get the oil lubricating.
Can I interrupt you just for a minute? Let's make sure we do this in order. Maybe have a second. Maybe we have a second, Vince.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
Right. You don't get the engine lubricated. You don't even cook the condensation, the water that's accumulated in the engine compartment. It tends to rust out. Plus, it's not a private vehicle, so it does get more use and abuse. It's just this AC has been thoroughly vetted. The financial committee came back, and originally the plan was to go for a used vehicle. The financial committee said, it just doesn't make sense to go ahead and to just purchase a brand new vehicle. It will be fitted out with lockers, with a ladder rack, and this vehicle is kind of a dual use. It's used also by the club to go pick up additional food and drinks supplies. So with the new configuration now, Daniel will be able to keep his stuff in the van, won't have to, and won't have to unload it, and the club can still use it for their runs.
Thank you. I do have a question about, since we're talking about our vehicles, do we purchase gasoline for our vehicles on retail, or do we buy gasoline and dispense it from our own tank? How does that work?
Yeah, for the golf course, we use diesel fuel, farm fuel, in other words, we get at a discount. And for other equipment that does not take diesel, we fill it up at cost at the marina.
Okay, good. All right, so we have a motion and second for the purchase of a utility van. Any other comments, questions? Not all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes, and now we're on item I, and that would be Ross and...
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like approval for ACE 17-10-19. This is to replace a tractor that is needed for roads and grounds and the golf course as well.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Ross?
Yeah, this was a 18-year-old tractor. It's used on a fairly regular basis. It gets heavy use, heavy duty, difficult jobs, and it just simply outlived its useful life, and we're hoping to approve that. The approved budget's $35,000.
$30,000.
$30,000, sorry.
Right. Yeah. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor, say aye. Raise your right hand. Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, thank you. Item number 7, there are no committee or management recommendations requiring board action. And number 8, the management report. Mr. Bartholomew.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's timing in for a karaoke party with DJ Keith, taking place this Saturday, June 3rd, in the Brazos Room, 8 o'clock. Always a festive occasion. Please join us if you can. Keith does a great job. The Pecan Plantation Volunteer Fire Department EMS Open House takes place on June 10th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. They'll have displays, free food, kids' activities, demonstrations, and a chance to visit with your first responders. We have a new program. You might have heard that golf, the decline of golf, and we're starting a new program called SNAG, Starting New at Golf. This is a program that uses plastic clubs with tennis balls that you hit at targets, and they stick to the targets. And we actually have a member, Mary Urquhart, who, along with Bobby, are going to run the program. This will be a free program, so even adults can come to it. You start out with this club that teaches you the grip and move on from there. The classes will be June 10th, 17th, July 15th, 29th, and August 26th. Those are Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. So if you have a grandkid that's in town or a youngster that wants to learn golf, this is a great way to get a start at golf. Time out our fathers on Father's Day primary brunch, Saturday, June 18th, 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Treat Dad to prime rib, various side dishes, salad bar, hot breakfast buffet, and made-to-order omelets and waffle bars. And, of course, assorted desserts to end your brunch. All of our camps, classes, and activities are cranking up. Our first swim, golf, and tennis camp is next week. Look in your columns. There's new camps. We have a new volleyball camp this year. Something for everybody, old and young alike. So plan your summer around the camps, classes, and the many activities that are coming up. One of our most popular is the Kids Fishing Tournament, which takes place on June 26th down at the number 10 pond on the golf course. At 8 a.m. We'll start out. Please bring your fishing pole, and we will supply the bait. Always a fun event. There's quite a lot of fish in there. There's actually some rather large bass in there, and so hopefully somebody will catch one of the really big fish that are in there. We do give out trophies, medals, and a Big Fish Award, and a great opportunity for picture taking for your kids or grandkids. Save the date, the Missoula Children's Theater is coming back for another performance, July 24th through the 29th. We'll have auditions on the 24th at 10 o'clock. They need up to 60 kids from the kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. The auditions will take place during the week with 2 performances on July 29th of Alice in Wonderland at 2 and 4 p.m. If you'd like to have your children or grandchildren audition, please call the PAC, and of course, grandkids are welcome. And finally, I just hope you and your families have a great summer and enjoy all the activities we have planned. Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. And by the way, that fishing tournament's on my birthday, so I wonder if I can...
Sure, we could probably... do you know how to bait a hook?
Not anymore. I'd like to just take advantage of the opportunity to just make a comment that we have programs that go on here frequently that don't get very much notice, but I'd like to note that each year a number of volunteers in our community host the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, the WASPs, who flew aircraft during World War II and did not get the recognition that they deserved until 30 or 40 years later. There are very few of them left. We hosted 9 of them here, and then 11 women total showed up at their reunion in Sweetwater. These are wonderful people who are national treasures, and it's an honor for us here in Pecan Plantation to be a part of that program. That program takes place because of members in our community who volunteer to create the opportunity for them to come. I would mention Lana Krasik and Karen Sparks and Claudia Sutter, who do a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that that program goes on. And that, I guess, concludes our meeting, and so I call this meeting adjourned.